What is going on, guys? Going on 27 squad. Welcome back into another video. I'm gonna try to do this video without any distractions because it is pouring outside, a huge thunderstorm outside. I'm hoping that it doesn't knock out my power or make a lot of noise in the background. It seems like it's kind of been a little bit calmer, but let's just see what happens. But this is my first 2-round mock draft this season, mock draft 2.0. And I'm sorry I'm late with these guys. I've been so busy, but I'm excited about this. This has trades in it, as you can see here. I'm just gonna kind of scroll down. I'm not gonna, go pick by pick and waste a lot of time. But there is trades in here. I try to implement as much trades as I can, but it's so hard to predict trades. And I'm too much of a perfectionist, and like if I don't see it actually happening, I'm just like, I'm not gonna do it. But I threw some trades in here, just like what the hell, to just throw something out there. So that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's get started. All right, so obviously I have the first overall pick, CJ Stroud, coming off the board. I don't want to harp too much on it. I think people already kind of know the explanation behind it, but my reasoning personally is that if I'm going to trade from number 9 to number 1 and give up the value that I did, I'm going to go after the safest quarterback with a high ceiling as well. I don't think the margin between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud is that great for me to take Bryce Young and risk that with him being smaller and skinnier and smaller, and it has a lower floor than a CJ Stroud. I'm looking for a guy with a higher floor, and we'll figure out the ceiling later. But I like CJ Stroud. I think he's number 1 overall pick worthy, and he comes off the board here, number 1 overall. Then we got Bryce Young, a little bit of 1-2. And then I have the Cardinals trading down 1 spot. Now, this is the trade that I can definitely see happening. Like, I can almost pencil this in. I think it's bound to happen. Arizona gets free compensation. They still get the guy that they should want in Will Anderson. And Anthony Richardson is probably going to be a guy that's highly sought after because of the combine. And Indianapolis is looking for a quarterback. The Cardinals are fielding calls from a lot of teams, according to sources, and I'm guessing it's teams like the Raiders, teams maybe like the Seahawks, including the Colts, and maybe teams that are in the teens as well, like the Titans, or who knows, right? Willing to get to that number 3 overall spot to get themselves a quarterback. And the lowest risk, and you're still ending up with compensation, would be Will Anderson. Would be the Indianapolis Colts, because you could still get Will Anderson. You could still get the best player in the draft and still get some compensation. So I would say that this is a trade that may very well happen. So let's move on to the Seattle Seahawks getting Jalen Carter. Now, I can definitely see this happening because the Seahawks really don't give a damn about a player's off the field issue. They kind of don't. They don't care, especially in the first round. They go after anybody. They don't care what you graded that player going into the draft process. They'll draft anybody. But Jalen Carter would be such a great fit for the team. It's hard for me to kind of put aside. It's hard for me to kind of really harp on his off the field issues, and I don't think it's going to affect him too much. You've seen these guys all the time. They always have, there's always at least one prospect that has an issue into their draft, and it really doesn't really affect them going into their career. So I feel like the Seahawks are the biggest risk takers, and they'll take a risk on Carter here. I have the Detroit Lions taking Tyree Wilson. Now this is a team that can trade down. They have 2 first-round picks. They don't have, they do have needs on the defensive line, don't get me wrong, and Tyree Wilson fills a big spot, fills a big role, and would fill a huge need. But they can miss out on Tyree Wilson and trade down if they wanted to and get some big compensation to help build their team up. They're not a team that with glaring needs right now. They kind of did a good portion of that in the in free agency, but Tyree Wilson is a great fit here, and I have them drafting Wilson here with the 6th overall pick. Moving on to the Raiders, and I have them getting Christian Gonzalez. I personally like Christian Gonzalez over Devon Witherspoon. It's not a big, guys. It's not a big deal. It's not a big margin at all. It could be either or. I just prefer Christian Gonzalez, and the Raiders just have a huge need at corner, And this one's pretty obvious. I mean, you could just put Devin Witherspoon in here and I'll be okay with it. So moving on, we have the first trade, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. And I'll kind of peek out a little bit, do this kind of action like that, right? So I have the Atlanta Falcons trading down. They need to get some more. They need to get some more draft picks. They need to get some more opportunities to fill their team. And with them trading with Tennessee, they still have a couple of options available at the 11th spot. And Tennessee is going to move up. I know Titans fans may not like this, being that they got Malik Willis already. And Will Levis isn't a quarterback that a lot of people are high on. But Tennessee is going to be looking for, looking towards the future, as their window's kind of closing. I think they acknowledge that their window is very much closing. And I have them taking Will Levis here, moving up for Will Levis here. Now we have the Chicago Bears. And listen, I know that the Titans can very well get a tackle with their first round pick, but I have them getting a quarterback. Sorry. Paris Johnson, number 9th overall for the Chicago Bears. This one is probably a very obvious, one of the more obvious picks in the top 10 besides Will Anderson or the 2 quarterback picks. This one's pretty obvious. They need, I forgot who Braxton Jones, I believe they have there as their left tackle right now, former 5th round pick a year ago or maybe even last year. But you're not going to, with Paris Johnson on the board at number 9 overall, you're really going to miss out on that because of Braxton Jones had a good year. Go ahead and take Paris Johnson, probably the best tackle in the draft. And, you got yourself a tackle for Justin Fields. We move on. I got an itch in my ear. To the number 10th overall pick, and that is Bijan Robinson coming off the board. Now, a lot of people have Bijan Robinson going everywhere in the draft just because of not him as a player, but just the running back position as a whole. I feel like it's going back downhill. We had those times in 2014, 2015, 2016, those 3 or 4 years, you had the running back position kind of really devalued in the draft and in the NFL, just not being utilized a lot. And then they started to make a little bit of a resurgence. Guys like Derrick Henry, guys like Nick Chubb, kind of Saquon Barkley, kind of, inching their way back in the importance of positions. But it's kind of dwindling back down. Nobody likes running backs anymore, and that's just unfortunate because I love the running back position. It's in my name. But Bijan Robinson is a generational talent in my opinion, and with the Eagles having a glaring need at running back, and that is probably their only need is at running back, to be honest with you. Yeah, they need safeties, but you're not going to draft a safety here. And maybe corners just for the future, as depth. They really don't have glaring needs. Maybe they can get a wide receiver, but they have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. They don't have needs, guys. They just don't. So Bijan Robinson would be a luxury pick, and the Bijan Robinson would take them to a Super Bowl, no joke. With him and Jalen Hurts would single-handedly, with the receivers that they have, would single-handedly take them to the Super Bowl again, which is unfortunate because I'm a Giants fan. Moving on, so the Atlanta Falcons trade down, and they still get the guy they probably would have drafted at the number 8th pick. So Falcons fans, you should be happy. Devin Witherspoon comes off the board here to pair along with A.J. Terrell. The Texans getting Jackson Smith and Jigba. This would be great if C.J. Stroud went number 2 overall, and then they get JSN. That would just be awesome. That would be like a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase sort of thing in the same draft, though. That would be pretty damn dope. But moving on, the Jets acquiring Peter Skoronski. This is a guy that can play guard and tackle. Shorter arms. A lot of people project him as a guard. I think he's still a damn good tackle. I think he could be a Pro Bowl guy either way. But this is a Jets team that has a need on the interior, I think. And then I think they need a right tackle as well. I think he could fill in just fine as a right tackle. Mekhi Becton has slimmed up. We don't know what is going on with him and how he's going to perform, but he did look like he slimmed up a bit and is ready for the season. Now, the Patriots, it's so hard to mock a Patriots pick. If you guys are doing mock drafts, you guys know it's so hard to mock a Patriots pick because they don't know how to draft. Even if they do have a first round pick, because they always trade out of the first, let's be real. But even when they do, pick in the first round. It's just like head scratch. It's like, why did you do that? Like Malcolm Brown, and then you got N'Keal Harry, and then you got who the guy they got last year, Cole Strange. It's so hard to mock a Patriots pick. You kind of just go after the guy you would want them to get, not the guy you think they're gonna get, because they damn well may get a 3rd round prospect with the 14th overall pick. Who knows? But or maybe they even trade down from this spot. They don't really care about the draft, to be honest with you. So I have the Patriots going ahead and getting Brian Branch. This guy is one of the better defensive backs in the draft. He's one of my draft crushes, to be honest with you. The guy can play all over the field. One of the more versatile players in this draft. Just not even defensive back, just players in this draft. And a guy you can really stick anywhere. And with the Patriots defense being known for being as fluid and as much of a hybrid as it is, this would be a perfect fit for Brian Branch. Moving on to the Green Bay Packers, they continue their streak of not drafting wide receivers, but they get a guy who I think is better, in my opinion. Dalton Kincaid is a better option than any wide receiver left on the board here, to be honest with you, because they already have something with Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. There would be no sense in getting a 1st round wide receiver. Might as well try to spread out the talent a little bit and get yourself a tight end. They don't have any good tight ends on that roster right now. And Dalton Kincaid is like a Greg Dulcich, Travis Kelce sort of tight end, where he is a receiving threat, great route runner, great downfield speed, great hands, and I think would be a rookie quarterback's best friend. I know Jordan Love isn't technically a rookie, but this is his first year actually having the reins as a quarterback. I think this will be a match made in heaven for Dalton Kincaid and the Packers and Jordan Love. This would just be a slam dunk pick, and I think would help out Jordan Love tremendously to have a safety blanket besides those receivers to get the ball to. The Washington Commanders needing a right tackle, they go ahead and get Broderick Jones here. I think this is a good pick. I think he more so fits a right tackle role, or a lot of people may think he's a guard just because he's not as athletic or as doesn't have the agility really to maybe play on the outside at tackle. So we'll see if they kick him inside. Moving on to the Steelers. Listen, it would be weird. It would just be kind of this borderline disrespectful if the Steelers don't go Joey Porter here if he's available. Odds are he's going to be available, and they have a huge need at corner. I know they need a tackle as well. You can go ahead and get a Darnell Wright or an Anton Harrison, or I don't know who else is on the board that I have here, but you can get a tackle here. You can sort of reach for one here, but you need a cornerback, and the fact, obviously his dad played for the Steelers, won a Super Bowl for the Steelers, and they need a cornerback. It just seems like a match made in heaven. It's a Pennsylvania connection. It's just too obvious. I mean, you shouldn't have a mock that doesn't have Joey Porter going to the Steelers. It's just poetic. Moving on. The Lions bolstering up their defensive line, drafting Tyree Wilson, then getting some interior help with Kalijah Kancey. Man, Kalijah Kancey is probably my second draft crush in this draft, man. His ability to pass rush on the inside. I know he's very undersized, 6'1", 281, but he reminds me of Sheldon Rankins a couple years back, and he's just so disruptive, so fast, so quick as a pass rusher on the inside, and he also does well against the run. People are overlooking that as well. He's not just a one-trick pony. This guy, his draft stock rose as more people watched film on him, and deservingly so. He deserves to be drafted in the first round. So Kalijah Kancey out of Pittsburgh to Detroit. Moving on, we have the Bucks drafting Nolan Smith out of Georgia. His stock has rose as well, and they need pass rush help. I think this would be a good yin and yang sort of thing with Joe Tryon, sort of the bigger, more strong side defensive end or linebacker or edge rusher, and Nolan Smith kind of being that more finesse, quick speed off the edge sort of guy, and also plays the run very well. So long arms, plays the run very well, has experience covering, so I think he would be a great figure. Shaquille Barrett's old, okay? They need to get younger on the entire defense, and they're starting to rebuild a little bit, and this would be a good move for them. I had the Seattle Seahawks getting Jordan Addison. I know this is not a pick I usually see. I don't see them getting wide receiver at all. I see them like addressing corner or defensive line. We already had the Jalen Carter pick in the first round, 5th overall. But listen, if there's one player that Jordan Addison reminds me of in the NFL, one is Calvin Ridley. Second one is Tyler Lockett. And with Lockett being, I believe, like 31 years old already, he's getting older. And you could use another wide receiver, even if Lockett is available. Now Lockett has had some injuries the past couple of years, and it kind of sidelined him a bit. But bringing in Jordan Addison would be a great fit here. And on top of that, I think their number 3 receiver right now is Dwayne Eskridge. He has not done anything in the league up to this point, so Jordan Addison would step in there and be that wide receiver 3 until eventually replacing Tyler Lockett. I think would be a good move here. The Los Angeles Chargers getting Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. They need a right tackle. Not too much to explain here. They need a right tackle along with Rashawn Slater, and he's probably the best right tackle in this draft, the one who has played right tackle like for the majority of their collegiate career. I like Darnell Wright a lot. His draft stock is rising, deservingly so, and this is a plug-and-play sort of thing, not much to explain. Deonte Banks to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, with them signing Odell Beckham and maybe acquiring DeAndre Hopkins, that's like Lamar's wish list. Lamar Jackson's wish list was those 2 receivers. They got Odell Beckham. They may not be able to acquire DeAndre Hopkins, but along with the guys they already have there, it's hard for me to really see them drafting another wide receiver in like a first-round wide receiver. They definitely have a lot of other needs to address, and they are a team that is looking for a Super Bowl like quickly because of Lamar Jackson's situation. They are looking to make a deep playoff run, and they have to fill in as much holes as they can. So they already got some wide receivers there. You got to address that secondary because it's once been a great secondary. Now it's just old, beat up, and needs rejuvenating, and Deonte Banks would be a good fit here. Moving on to the Vikings. I know they need wide receiver help, but they already have Justin Jefferson, and the bulk of the wide receiver talent, the value is really there in the second, third round. This is a team that has a lot of defensive struggles. Their defense really put them in bad spots last year, and them picking up Brian Bresee here would be a good move. And Brian Bresee is not my favorite defensive tackle left on the board, but a lot of people are high on him, and maybe draft scouts are too. And he's, coming off the board 23rd overall. Moving on, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars drafting Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame. Now, he may be the best traditional tight end in this draft, one that blocks. He's a little bit on the slower side, kind of a safety blanket sort of guy. Has some mobility, has some athleticism to him, as a lot of these guys do coming out in the draft, as they're still young. You really can't be like so immobile coming out of college, no matter what position you play. But Michael Mayer coming off the board here to Jacksonville would be great for Trevor Lawrence, the exact piece that they need. I know they still have Evan Ingram, but we don't know what's going to happen with Evan Ingram throughout the years. This will give you 4, maybe 5 years with a tight end that can probably be a top 10 tight end in the league. That's how high I am on Michael Mayer, so we'll see what happens with that. But moving on with the Giants, I have them drafting Zay Flowers out of Boston College. Now, they can go many different areas here. I see a lot of people asking for a center here. I don't think so. Maybe cornerback, that's also an option as well. But to me, when it comes to the wide receiver position, if a guy like Zay Flowers is there, maybe Jordan Addison, I'm going to pull the trigger on those guys just for the sheer fact that none of the wide receivers on this roster right now is going to keep me from drafting a first-round wide receiver. None of these wide receivers on the roster right now is going to keep me from drafting a guy that you can keep for almost 5 years or maybe 5 years on a roster when you have the rest of the wide receiver core on 1 year and 2 year deals. Nobody is above a 2-year deal. I believe the only one on a 2-year deal is Darius Slayton. The rest are 1-year flyers. So you don't know what's going to happen with the wide receiving core throughout in the future. And I'm talking about Wan'Dale Robinson too. Obviously, he's on his rookie contract being drafted last year, but he's got 3 more years on his contract, and he's coming off an ACL tear. So just the wide receiver core is just up in shambles right now. In the twilight zone. So let's just get Zay Flowers here and get a receiver for 4 years and maybe 5. Mozzie Smith coming off the board at Dallas. This will be so scary, man. I'm so high on Mozzie Smith. I think he's better than Brian Breesy. This guy is so disruptive up the middle, and unlike Kalijah Cansey, this guy plugs gaps. This guy has 2 gap responsibilities, so he beats double teams. He destroys running backs. I mean, he has a great inside move to get past the line of scrimmage and get to the quarterback's face. Has a problem of finishing, obviously, with being a bigger defensive tackle. That's just going to be hard to do to finish. But the goal is to disrupt the line, break the line of scrimmage, and let the other guys do the rest. And man, him with Osa Odigizua, Micah Parsons, Dorrance Armstrong, Tank Lawrence, like it will be insane for them on that linebacker. I mean, on the defensive line. So moving on to the 27th overall pick, I have the Buffalo Bills trading down because they don't have any glaring needs right now. They really don't need to draft anybody in the first round right now, to be honest with you. It would just be all depth picks. I don't think anybody they draft here is going to get a lot of playing time. So they're going to trade down here. Arizona moves up. Now, Emmanuel Forbes is a guy that I have circled as like the 30th overall pick. Like he's going to be the guy if he's there at the 30th overall pick. Jonathan Gannon, former Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator, loves to run off man, cover 2 zone. He loves that. That's his base defense. And with him going to the Arizona Cardinals, you're kind of presuming that that's the defense they're going to run over there. And, you know, he is a guy that can be drafted at a late first round. They originally had the 34th overall pick, so they trade with the Buffalo Bills to move up a couple of spots to get to back in the first round and get Emmanuel Forbes here, who would fit their defense to an absolute T, and they need cornerback help as well. And I'm pretty excited for the Arizona Cardinals like defense and how they're going to run things there, because they do have Byron Murphy there as well, who is very, very familiar with zone coverage defenses going back to his days at Washington. Now, Budda Baker requested a trade, which sucks, but there's no safety here really worth drafting in the first or second round to me for Arizona. So have them drafting a corner, trading up for a corner here. And the Bengals getting Cam Smith. They lost the great Eli Apple. You got to fill in that space somehow. I know it's going to be hard to do, but they do it here with Cam Smith. The New Orleans Saints drafting Lucas Van Ness. I'm not as high on Van Ness as a lot of people are. Some people have him going as high as the 10th overall pick. That's ridiculous to me. I think he's a guy that is developmental. I know he's played well in the time he has played as like a rotational guy. I know he's still got a lot of playing time in college. Saying he's rotational is kind of not doing him a lot of justice. He's still got a lot of playing time, but I don't know. Something just is off with me with Lucas Van Ness. He's like a speed to power guy, but when his speed is gone, he's got no power. It's just, I'm not a big Lucas Van Ness guy, but he has a high ceiling. That's why I think he's still worth drafting in the first round to try to coach up and see what you can get out of him. And the Saints need a good rotation at their defensive line right now. It's very old, so they need to rejuvenate it a bit. And the Eagles, with no corner really worth drafting right now for depth, because, you know, James Bradbury and Darius Slay, you just barely were able to hold on to both of those guys. But they helped their defensive line depth here with Myles Murphy. So Bijan Robinson and Myles Murphy in the first round for them. To end the first round, Kansas City is going to take DeJuan Jones. They need a right tackle. It is what it is. Next, in the beginning of the round 2, the Pittsburgh Steelers get their tackle here. Instead of getting one at 17th overall, they get Joey Porter, and now they have Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. So they're able to address both of their top needs with their first 2 picks, and I think those are their top 2 needs. I believe they have another second-round pick as well, so we'll get to that when we get to that. The Texans with their 3rd pick in this draft so far, and they draft edge. I can never say his name, and I'm not even going to try to, because I'm just going to butcher it. And you know what? I'm going to try the first one. Adetomiwa. Adetomiwa Adebawore. I don't know, man. It was hard for me to say like a couple years ago. Owambe Odigizua, the former Giants defensive end. And then Amani Oruwariye. It's hard, man. It's hard. But if anybody, I just call him Double A. Double A out of Northwestern. He's awesome. I think I have a first-round grade on him. I just don't have, unfortunately, I don't have him getting taken here. But I do have a first-round grade on this guy. This guy is awesome. Very disruptive. He plays 3-tech, 4-eye, 5-tech. Lines up, at a wide 9 sometimes. I mean, he lines up everywhere. Very versatile, very disruptive, no matter where you put him. And D'Amico Ryans is going to get an absolute dog in Double A. Moving on, Osiris Torrance. Listen, this is a guy they could have drafted with a first-round pick, but they get some more draft capital and they move down to the second round. Osiris Torrance coming off the board here, guard out of Florida. And that's pretty much, I mean, their needs are like offensive line. That's pretty much it. I mean, they don't really have any glaring needs. I think they lost Jordan Poyer, if I'm not mistaken, or Micah Hyde, one of those guys. Maybe both. I don't know. I believe they lost one of them. They can get a safety, but there's no safety worth drafting here right now at the top of the second. So, cornerback DJ Turner coming off the board out of Michigan to the Colts. If you look at the Colts depth chart right now, if you go ahead and the Colts fans, if you're in here, if you look at the Colts depth chart right now, you couldn't name me one corner besides Kenny Moore. Like, I've never heard of these guys in my entire life. Like, they're absolute trash. You need to get a cornerback. I would almost want you to trade up into the first round to get one of these top corners because it's bad. It is so bad, their cornerback core right now. So, they're great defense. Their great front seven that they're trying to build here is not going to do diddly squat when guys are getting open 1 second after the ball is snapped. So, and Kenny Moore's old on top of that, so you guys need to get somebody. Next, the Rams. Talk about a worse roster than the Colts. Let's talk about the Rams roster. The worst roster in the NFL. Like, this may be one of the worst rosters I've ever seen, to be honest with you. I know they got Cooper Kupp, all right? They got Matt Stafford. They got a couple of guys in there, but the worst roster I've ever seen in my life. BJ Ojulari is going to help them with that. They need pass rushers desperately. Aaron Donald this, Aaron Donald that. He can only do so much as a defensive tackle. You got to add some more talent there. BJ Ojulari is a great pick for the Rams. Next, the Seahawks bolstering their defensive line. They got Jalen Carter. They got Jordan Addison. Now, with their third pick in this draft, they get Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame. He's a big, strong edge rusher that can stand, pass rush standing up, put his fingers in the dirt. He's a guy that's versatile and he sets the edge very well. I think he'll be a good fit there for Seattle. Now, it's very, very hard to predict where this quarterback is going to go. Hendon Hooker. You can make a case that this guy may be taken, like some team may trade up into the first round. Not necessarily a team in the first round already at the back end of the first. Maybe a team somewhere in the second round trading into the first to try to get a fifth-year option on Hendon Hooker. He's 26 years old. All right, I think he's 25, but when the season starts, I believe he's going to be 26. All right. That's old for a quarterback, especially a guy that is probably not going to start. And I think the best option right now is Jimmy Garoppolo and the Raiders, because I know Jimmy G's on a 3-year deal. I know his dead cap isn't really worth taking on until 2 years in, but Jimmy G gets hurt like every year. Like it's every year. He's not going to play a full season. Hendon Hooker would get playing time with the Raiders. It's arguable. You may see the Raiders even trade up into the first round, back into the first to get this guy. Just to get a fifth-year option on him, because now you're drafting him in the second round, and you're gonna risk kind of wasting years, and before you know it, he's gonna be hitting the open market as like a 31-year-old quarterback, and I don't think anybody would want to pay that. So I don't know where Hendon Hooker is going to land, but I think the one that makes the most sense here is with the Raiders, because I don't think he's in a position to start anywhere right now. But there's that. Next, the Carolina Panthers drafting Josh Downs. He stays in Carolina. They need slot wide receivers, and this guy's an absolute just route running genius. He's not the fastest, right? He's not gonna. That's why nobody likes him, because he's not fast. I don't care if he's not fast. All right, this guy is like Cooper Kupp to me. Cooper Kupp was not fast either. Now his game speed's a little faster, but he ran a 4.7 in the draft. Josh Downs ran like a 4.58 or something like that, so he's faster. But he has great route running, great hands. Finds very smart, finds soft spots in the zones, slashes through zones going upfield. I mean, he does a lot of things, man. He could be a quarterback's best friend, especially a young developing quarterback, and it would in this case be CJ Stroud. So I think this would be a good pick here. Next, I know people are probably like, where the hell is Quentin Johnston? I'm not a Quentin Johnston guy, to be honest with you. I think he's going to fall. Maybe not this far, to be honest with you, but I couldn't, find a place to put Quentin Johnston besides the Saints with the 40th overall pick because of the sheer fact that Michael Thomas is Michael Thomas, and he's just never playing. Quentin Johnston could kind of fill in that role there. Thomas is usually great with the short intermediate routes, and getting some yards after the catch. You know, everybody knows Michael Thomas for those infamous slant routes, right? Quentin Johnston is a guy with great releases, great footwork, great short to intermediate route running. He's just the dude's like 6'4", and he plays like a slot receiver. I mean, it is what it is. I think he'll fill in a good role here with the Saints, and kind of fill in a Michael Thomas sort of role. I'm not saying that he is. Don't get me wrong, because the comments will go crazy. I'm not a big fan of Quentin Johnston, to be honest with you, but you can find a role for him somewhere. I think the Saints do here. The Jalen Hyatt, listen, the Falcons always get, they just disregard everybody, and they just get guys that are fast. Like, what is your 40 time? What is your game speed? We want speed. If you go back to drafts, Vic Beasley, Deion Jones, they drafted a safety a couple of years ago that was extremely fast. Calvin Ridley. They just draft speed. That's all they do. They draft speed. Devontae Freeman. Michael Vick, right? But they're just known for speed over there, okay? And no matter what position you play, they're known for speed. So Jalen Hyatt will be a great fit here. They need wide receivers, and Jalen Hyatt will be good here. Let Drake London be that sort of number one receiver to kind of be that threat for the intermediate routes, and Jalen Hyatt can be the guy to take the top off and eat up the safety. Now, this is interesting here, okay? Oh yeah, by the way, this is a mock trade pick that Jalen Hyatt picked. This is supposed to be the Titans with this 41st overall pick. All right, this is interesting here, okay? So hear me out. I don't think the Jets are going to keep these two picks. It is very rare that in the first two rounds, teams with consecutive picks, and this happens every year, you guys can go back. It's very rare that teams actually utilize both picks in a row. They usually either try to use one or even both of those picks to move up, or they trade down one of those picks to try to acquire more draft capital. To them, they feel like there's no sense in getting two guys right next to each other, which is stupid to me because I would do that all day. But they may either try to trade up using one of those picks or trade down using one of those picks. So, but in this case, I'm going to have them keeping them just for Jets fans and just for them to look at possible guys they can draft consecutively. And man, they would win the draft. They would absolutely win the motherfucking draft if they can use these picks to get a guy like Darnell Washington and John Michael Schmitz there, man. They need centers. They can use another tight end there. One of the best blockers in this class. The best blocker in this class. One of the best blocking tight ends I've ever seen coming out in a draft before. He's just an absolute animal. And he could catch the ball well as well for whoever's going to be quarterbacking for them. And man, they would just win the draft again after winning the draft last year if they can pull off these two picks here. Next, we talked about speed, right? By the way, another speedy guy from the Falcons that they drafted, Takars McKinley. They just get a lot. You guys catch my drift here? They just draft speed. And Will McDonald is another guy. Speed at the defensive end position. This guy is extremely fast, great off the edge, would be a great tandem with Lorenzo Carter. Will McDonald is very, very misunderstood coming into this draft process because Iowa State never really put him in a good position to succeed. This guy was always be putting 3 technique, 4 eye. He's not a strong guy. He's a slippery, fast, very athletic edge rusher with great bend to him. He needs to be put in 5 technique and past that. 5, 7, and 9 needs to be put on that, and the Falcons should find a role for him on that defense. So they just draft speed, baby. Green Bay drafting Clark Phillips. They are not shy of drafting smaller cornerbacks. Kelly Ringo still on the board here, but they don't want to draft another Kevin King. So Clark Phillips could be the pick here. He's 5'9", I get that, but listen, Jair Alexander's 5'10". I think Darnell Savage is 5'10". Like, these guys are smaller, okay? They are not shy drafting smaller defensive backs. So Clark Phillips off the board here out of Utah. All right, we're going to try to move a little faster here. We're at 34 minutes right now. We're trying to move a little faster. Drew Sanders coming off the board here. We've talked about this with the Brian Branch pick. The Patriots defense, how they run their defense, is very versatile, very like fluid. So they really could find a role for anybody who. All right, my mic just cut out. I hit my wire by accident. But like I was saying before, the Patriots will find a role for somebody that may have trouble finding a role in the draft when it comes to like prospects, because Brian Branch, what is he? A safety, slot corner? What is he, right? Drew Sanders, what is he? An edge rusher, off-ball linebacker, strong side, pure pass rushing linebacker? Who knows, right? Drew Sanders is like a Micah Parsons as far as the role that he plays, and I think the Patriots, if there's any team that could find a role for him, it's going to be the Patriots, and Drew Sanders would be a good pick here. Washington making up for that terrible Jamin Davis pick a couple years ago, picking up the best linebacker in this draft, bar none, Jack Campbell. I love this guy, and they pick him up here out of Iowa. The Lions making up for losing out on TJ Hawkinson, getting the next best tight end on the board, Luke Musgrave. Now, stick with me on this one here. This Patriots pick, a lot of people may scratch their heads and be like, why? Why do you have the Steelers taking Jahmyr Gibbs when they have Najee Harris? I don't like Najee Harris, and I think a lot of Pittsburgh fans are getting tired of Najee Harris. I mean, I know he kind of came back on towards the end of the season, I think, but I know he had a terrible start to the season. He wasn't doing anything. He looked slow. He looked just beat up. He looked worn down, and he couldn't do anything. He couldn't get past the line of scrimmage. He was on first contact, he was going down. You need a guy to switch it up a little bit, add a little bit of speed, add a little bit of slipperiness, and Jahmyr Gibbs, man, is just like Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook put together. Like the tough running of Dalvin Cook, who is very slippery as well, don't get me wrong, but just the athletic and agility and mobility of Alvin Kamara, you put that together, you have Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that would be a great, refreshing sort of pick for the Steelers, as it's kind of getting boring watching Najee Harris to play. Let's just be real. It's kind of boring watching him play. You got to admit that, Steelers fans. So moving on, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers addressing tackle. I believe they lost out on Donovan Smith. I know a lot of Bucs fans. I'm in Florida, and they hate Donovan Smith, so they are happy about this move. So they draft Cody Mauch out of North Dakota State. I just love how North Dakota State comes out with a prospect every single year. Like, they got Cody Mauch this year. They had Christian Watson last year. They had Trey Lance the year before that. You can go back. I think they had a guard that came out a couple of years ago as well. And then they had Carson Wentz. Like, they had a bunch of these guys. I think it's awesome that they have prospects coming out every year. A smaller school like North Dakota State. The Miami Dolphins, they are trying to win something. Like they're trying to go for it all. And when you want to go for it all, you take luxury picks. I know they haven't, this is their first pick in the draft, but this one would honestly help their offense a lot. They can run the ball, but they can't find anybody to stay healthy at all. They have Raheem Mostert, who gets hurt more than any running back in the NFL. They have a couple of other guys there as well, and they can't stay healthy. They can't stay consistent, and they honestly aren't guys to run between the tackles. They're not tough enough. Zach Charbonnet has the breakaway speed, has the toughness to run in between the tackles. I think it would be a great pick out of UCLA and would help the Miami Dolphins take some pressure off of Tua Tagovailoa. Moving on, 52nd overall, you have the Seahawks continuing to build their offensive line. They did a great job after they finally learned their lesson in addressing their offensive line. It took Russell Wilson leaving for them to actually address the offensive line with Cross, with Abraham Lucas, and now they got to keep building from here. And Steve Avila, the guard out of TCU, would be a great pick here. The Bears addressing their edge rushers with Felix Amadiki Uzoma, and helping out that defensive line a little bit. I can't. Who did I have them drafted? They had drafted Paris Johnson, and then I had them drafting somebody else as well, or maybe this is their second pick. I believe this is just their second pick. Yeah, this is just their second pick. So, oops. Yeah. So I have them addressing defensive line here. I know there are a couple of guys available that may be like graded higher, but I'm just not in love with them. I don't like them that much. All right. So, Cedric Tillman coming out of Tennessee. He's a faster guy. I know he kind of falls off the radar a little bit because of Jalen Hyatt, but remember that he was like the number one guy before Jalen Hyatt really came onto the scene last year, and I think he's a good wide receiver. You really you watch him versus Keely Ringo, watch him versus Georgia. Cedric Tillman just absolutely sunned Keely Ringo, just sunned him. It was found a way to move around in space, found a way to beat man. Has decent route running, decent speed. I like Cedric Tillman. I think he would be a good fit for the Chargers and what they're trying to do over there with their receiving core. Marvin Mims is a guy that people are looking down on to. Not really looking down on, but looking away from for whatever reason. I think Marvin Mims is a good receiver. He may even go much higher than this. Who knows? He may even go to the top of the second. Who knows? But it's really hard for me to gauge where he's going to go. But Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma to the Lions to help out Ross A. Brown and company. All right, the Jacksonville Jaguars drafting Tyreek Stevenson. They can definitely address cornerback in the first round if they wanted to, but there's still talent with the cornerbacks in the second. So Tyreek Stevenson coming off the board here out of Miami, who can really fit in any defensive scheme. So I really don't have a problem with him going anywhere. The Giants drafting Joe Tippmann, next best center on the board after the Jets got John Michael Schmitz. And they get Joe Tippmann here. Personally, I like Luke Whippler better, especially for this Giants offense and what they run in their inside zone running scheme. I think Whippler kind of runs inside zone better than all three of those guys do. But Whippler is, from what I hear, a third-round prospect. I think he's a second-round guy, but third-round prospect for a lot of people. So I'm just going to have Tippmann coming out here. Trenton Simpson coming off the board here. Listen, they've had some bad luck in the past with some linebackers staying healthy. Leighton Vander Esch, one of them. Jabril Cox is another. I think he tore his ACL. Going back to Sean Lee as well. Like Jalen Smith. Like they have not had good luck with linebackers and staying healthy. You know, Micah Parsons was an obvious hit, but he's more like a defensive end now. You got to find another off-ball linebacker. Trenton Simpson is probably the best not the best off-ball linebacker. That's Jack Campbell, but second best off-ball linebacker here. Definitely the best on the board still. Next, Keely Ringo coming out the board here. Man, what a fall from grace Keely Ringo had, man. Watching more and more of his film, I like him, but it's hard for me to consider him a top 50 pick or 40 or something like that. It's just hard for me. I want to like him, I do, but there's too many red flags for Keely Ringo. I think he should go to a team that doesn't necessarily need cornerback help right now, but can use some depth. And the Buffalo Bills are one of them. They drafted Kaiir Elam a couple years ago. I think last year actually. And then they also still have Tre'Davious White there. They still have a couple of other guys over there that they don't need Keely Ringo right away, but he probably is going to get some playing time with some rotation. All right, we're getting into the last couple of picks here. We don't know what's going on with Joe Mixon right now, what he's going through right now. We don't know, and I don't think Samaje Perine is still there anymore. I think he left, which is weird to me. Well, honestly, good for him because, he was doing pretty damn well with Cincinnati. Nobody really cared about Samaje Perine, man, but they ran a little bit of a running back by committee there with Joe Mixon. Like, you've seen a lot of Samaje Perine in the Super Bowl last year, 2 years ago. You've seen a lot of him in the Super Bowl, and even in their playoff run last year, you saw a lot of him. So it's clear that they like the running back position, and they don't want to just use Joe Mixon. So I have Devin Achane coming here. I'm not the biggest Devin Achane guy, to be honest with you. He kind of reminds me of like Wayne Gallman a bit. And Wayne Gallman was a little bit tougher of a runner than he was. But then Devin Achane is. Devin Achane is tough, but he just goes down too easily. He's just too small, and to me, he just plays too small. He tries to be tough, but I'm not too big on him. But they could probably use a guy like him here. The Bears still adjusting their defensive line, getting Javon Dexter out of Florida. The Eagles getting Rashee Rice, helping out their wide receiving depth. And then to end the second round, they get another tight end. Listen, believe it or not, the Kansas City Chiefs love using multiple tight ends. I know you hear a lot about Travis Kelce, but they love using tight ends. You go back a couple of years now, ever since Travis Kelce's been there, they've had a lot of 2 tight end sets, and usually that other tight end is catching touchdowns because everybody's paid attention to everybody else. So Tucker Kraft would be great behind Travis Kelce, a great 1-2 punch there in the tight end room. Great for 12 personnel. So you can go wide receiver here, but I think the value here would be better for Tucker Kraft. So that being said, guys, that is my 2-round mock draft for the 2023 NFL draft. That was long-winded, 45 minutes. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new. And I'll see you guys in the next video.